Have you ever opened up the news and felt like you've been dropped into the middle of a super complex game, but nobody ever gave you the rule book? Well, today, we're going to fix that. We are going to build the ultimate mental map to help you navigate it all. So let's get into it.
First things first, you hear these words all the time, right? State, nation, government, and they're often used like they mean the same thing. It can get seriously confusing. So our goal here is to bring some real clarity and sort these terms into a framework you can actually use.
The way we're going to do this is by building what we'll call a minimum map. Just think of it as your essential guide, your GPS, for understanding how the human world is organized. This isn't about memorizing every single road, but about getting a feel for the fundamental layout of the land.
Okay, so every map needs a starting point, right? You need to know the basic terrain you're standing on. For us, that fundamental terrain, that first layer of everything, is the concept of the state.
So what is a state? Well, you can think of it as the big container. It's got defined borders, that's the territory. It's got people inside it, that's the population. And here's the crucial part. It claims sovereignty, which is just a fancy word for having the final say, the ultimate authority. It also says it's the only one that gets to legitimately use force, through police or an army.
Now, if the state is the container, or maybe the entire office building, then the government is the management team that's currently running the place. They're the ones in charge right now. But the key thing is, governments can change. You can vote them out, they can be overthrown, but the state, the building itself, that tends to stick around.
And that leads us to politics. Politics is the endless, dynamic competition to decide who gets to be the government. It's the struggle for the keys to the car, the fight over who gets to sit in the driver's seat and decide which direction the state is going to go.
So you can see how it all stacks up really neatly. At the very bottom, the foundation, you've got the state, this permanent structure. On top of that, you have the government, the specific team in charge today. And the energy that makes it all move, that's politics, the constant fight for control. 3 layers, each one distinct.
And here is another classic point of confusion. State versus nation. A state, remember, is a legal thing. It's a box on a map with borders and a government. A nation, though, is about people. It's a community that feels connected, sharing a common history, language, or culture. Sometimes they line up perfectly. That's a nation-state. But often they don't. You can have many nations inside one state, or one nation of people spread across several different states.
Okay, so we've got the basic terrain down. Now let's look at the rules of the road. How is power inside one of these states actually organized? What keeps it from being a total free-for-all? The main rulebook for many states is a constitution. You can literally think of it as the instruction manual. It spells out all the different parts of the government, what powers each part has, and, just as important, what they are not allowed to do. It sets up the entire game.
And a huge part of that instruction manual is usually about limiting power. 2 of the biggest ideas here are the separation of powers, which is basically splitting the job of governing into making laws, enforcing laws, and judging laws, and checks and balances. This gives each branch some way to stop the others from getting too powerful. These are like the internal guardrails designed to keep the whole system from flying off the tracks.
Now, even though all states have these basic ingredients, how you mix them together can create wildly different results. So let's explore some of the different kinds of political terrain you'll find out there on our world map. Now, this table gives us a few handy labels. But the really important thing to remember is that in the real world, things are messy, and these are often blended together. For instance, a country can be a republic, meaning no king or queen, but that doesn't automatically make it a democracy. If power is concentrated in just a few hands with no real checks, it might be a republic, but it's also authoritarian. These labels are useful starting points, but they never, ever tell the whole story.
All right, let's zoom the camera out, way out. We've mapped the inside of a state, but what happens when all of these individual maps start interacting with each other on the global stage? Well, this is where we get into geopolitics.
So, the foundational idea of our modern world system, written right there in the UN Charter, is this principle of sovereign equality. On paper, this means every single state is legally equal. A massive country and a tiny island nation, in international law, they each get one vote. In theory, anyway.
But then you see a chart like this, and reality just comes crashing in. That whole idea of legal equality gets challenged by the massive inequality of actual real-world power. Military spending is just one very blunt way of seeing this. It's pretty clear that not all states have the same ability to get what they want in the world.
And that, right there, is the absolute heart of geopolitics. It's this constant tension, this friction, between the idea that all states are equal and the reality that some are just vastly more powerful than others. This gap is what drives so much of what we see on the world stage, from global conflicts to diplomacy to who becomes allies with whom.
So, let's put it all together. We've built our map, starting with the basic terrain of a single state and zooming all the way out to the global stage. What are the key features you need to keep your eye on?
Here it is. This is your takeaway toolkit, your minimum map. Anytime you're trying to figure out what's going on somewhere, just ask these questions. First, why are the rulers even accepted? Second, what are the rules of the game, the institutions? Third, what do the different groups actually want? And what big ideas are they fighting for? And finally, what's going on outside the country's borders that's putting pressure on them? It's an incredibly powerful way to break things down.
And that leaves us with one last big thought. We have built the map that helps us understand the world as it's organized right now. But maps become outdated. Huge forces like climate change, new technologies, massive migrations, these things are like powerful currents that are actively redrawing the lines on the map. So the real question for you is, how will our map need to change to make sense of the world of tomorrow?